Today I'm going to take you through step by step the proper way to use the VLOOKUP function. By the way, my name is Karen Duncan. Welcome to my channel and stay tuned. Basically, what the VLOOKUP function does is it allows us to search inside of a table, find the value that we want, and it allows us to extract that value and place it somewhere else inside of a worksheet or a workbook. So for example, let's say we used VLOOKUP to find this value right here. We can retrieve that value using the VLOOKUP function, take that value and place it somewhere else, for example right here. Or we could even place it somewhere else inside of our workbook. I have an example here that I'm going to use to explain the application of VLOOKUP. Basically, what I have here is I have a table and it basically consists of employee information. I have employee names, their departments, their weekly hours of work, and I have their IDs. If you look in my table to the right, you'll notice that I have 3 employees which I've actually taken from my table to the left. So for example, Don Joe, you'll see that he's here. Susie May is here as well, and so forth. So these names of these employees are from my larger list in my table. What I want to do is find the weekly hours of work for these 3 employees. And that's in this 3rd column inside of my table. However, I don't want to manually search inside of the table to find the values. And this is where the VLOOKUP function comes in. We can use the function to search inside of the table and extract those values for us. How do we do that? Let's use the VLOOKUP function to find the weekly hours of work for the first employee on our list, Don Joe. If I click to the side of Don Joe and I click equal and I type VLOOKUP, we see that the function starts to appear and we click tab to accept that. Here we see that the function asks us for 4 different arguments. The first argument is called the lookup value. What is my lookup value? Well, basically, the lookup value is the value that we're using to look for another value or another piece of information that we want. So we're actually looking for a value for Don Joe, namely his weekly hours of work. So Don Joe is actually going to be our lookup value. Now a lookup value, note this very important point here, has to be in the leftmost column of our table. And the reason it's called VLOOKUP is because the way that the VLOOKUP function works is when we select our lookup value, the function vertically searches in that leftmost column. It finds the lookup value that we're interested in. And what this does is it basically points VLOOKUP to this row that contains our lookup value to extract that piece of information that we want. So the function knows that we're looking for a value inside of one of the cells in this row of our lookup value. So I'm going to select Don Joe right here as my lookup value. Next argument on the list, the table array. What is that? Well, basically, the table array is pretty much a range of cells that contains both our lookup value and the answer that we're searching for. So in the case of Don Joe, our table array is going to have to contain this name right here, our lookup value, as well as the weekly hours of work. So, for example, we could simply select these 3 cells. Notice that we've captured both the lookup value as well as the answer, his weekly hours of work. And notice also that we did not skip any of the columns while selecting the data. So we can't skip columns when selecting that lookup value and that answer that we're searching for. What would probably make more sense to select as our reference for our table array would be to select the entire table. That way, I could apply the table array to other lookup values as I drag the function downwards, as we'll actually do a bit later. So I can use Control-Shift here, right arrow, Control-Shift down arrow, and there I've selected my entire table. I click comma, and now we're on to the third argument. So we're making some good progress here. Third argument the function asks us for is the call index number. What is the call index number? Well, recall earlier we stated that when we selected our lookup value, which was Don Joe, we basically pointed VLOOKUP to this row as the row that contains the answer that we're looking for. So it's in one of the columns in this row. So VLOOKUP knows that our answer is in this row, but it doesn't know which column inside of the row contains that answer. And so we have to tell VLOOKUP which column to look into to extract the answer by giving the column a number. Keep in mind that the column number has to be relative to the table and not the worksheet. What that means is the way that I'm counting the columns is like this: 1, 2, 3. So my weekly hours of work is actually the third column inside of my table and not inside of my worksheet. So I select 3 as my column index number. So we're down to the final argument in the function. We're at the finish line here. And as you can see, VLOOKUP is not as scary as it looks. This final argument is called the range lookup. If we don't select anything here, by default, VLOOKUP is going to select true, approximate match. And what that means is VLOOKUP is going to look for the closest match to our lookup value, and it's going to use that to find the data. If we're using this, however, our information has to be sorted either alphabetically or it has to be sorted numerically. However, in this case, we're actually looking for an exact match. We want VLOOKUP to find that exact lookup value and return an exact match for us. So we're going to select false for an exact match. We click tab, and there we see VLOOKUP has extracted the right answer for us. Is that correct? If we click here, yeah, 30. If I drag this down to Susie Me, I get 14. Is that correct? Yes, great. If I drag it down again, I get an error. Now, why do I get this error? Well, let's pay attention to the formula bar here. Let's look at what's going on right here. If we click inside the part of the function that's linked to our table array, notice carefully here that the table array, it doesn't highlight my lookup value, nor does it highlight the answer that I'm searching for. And basically, what caused this to occur is pretty much when I entered the function up here, one thing that I didn't do is I didn't lock this reference that relates to the table array. And so when I drag the function down, the table array also moved downwards. And so what I need to do is lock this reference or make it absolute by highlighting it and selecting F4. I click enter, and if I drag this down, there I have my answer, 13 That should be correct. 13. So we have to get the referencing correct to ensure that the function works. Also, I will include a link in the description below to a video on how to apply proper referencing to formulas, so you can definitely check that out. So thanks again for looking at this video. If you appreciated the value of its content, please give it a like. Also, if you want to continue getting videos like this, then go ahead and click subscribe. So thanks again, and bye.